What would you do if your motherhood is questioned? Having lost 2 babies, would you give up or would you keep trying? Today on the show is a pregnancy story that turned out to be a sermon to many. Welcome with me, Stella. Stella, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Introduce yourself.
You've actually said my name. I'm Stella Mugonza. I'm a mother now by the special grace of God. I'm a lover of Jesus Christ. Yeah, so what else?
Take us through your story.
Okay. First and foremost, I always introduce myself as that person that God shown mercy, really, because where we come from, we always have spiritual backings, I would say, or how do I say? Okay, for me, my story started when I noticed I had difficulty. I didn't have difficulty conceiving, but I had difficulty sustaining or carrying full term. Talk less, give birth to a live child, you know. So when did I first find out that that was a problem? The very first time it happened, I actually thought it's a normal thing, because sometimes you can lose a child and you'd be like, maybe because it's the first one, maybe as I progress, maybe the second one would definitely leave, Whereas it was the case for me, it's different for other people. Many people have not lost their babies, they give birth and the babies do leave. So to backdate my story, I conceived for someone I was seeing. So the very first time it happened, I lost my child at 8 months. It was a stillbirth and she was a girl.
Oh, sorry.
So I went to hospital. Like, things happened very actually that time I was still doing my final exams in law school when it first happened, actually. And this person was from a different place, from a different nationality and all. So it involved a lot of journeying. I'm doing exams and I had to journey.
During the pregnancy?
Not really. When I got pregnant, I stayed in Uganda. But before that, we would journey to and fro to visit each other, yes. So when I conceived and took in, I was going to abort, because one, like I said, I was still in university. And
you were still young.
Yes, the school I went to was a Christian grounded school. And I mean Christian grounded school, for those that know, it's spiritually grounded, like it's a Christian university. So anytime you'd conceive, you'd lose a year. You'd go home, give birth, then join school. That means you're going to sign for a dead year. And here I was joining my 4th year of school, which is the final year of school. There is no way I would, lose a year or something. So of course the first thing that came to my mind is, one, I'm not married. Then I was my father's favorite, I would say. Why? Because he had a lot of expectations in me, and that's a challenge I've also had, that my parents do expect a lot from me. So do my other siblings. But there's a difference. Sometimes you feel like there's way more pressure on you, there's more eyes on you, there is more. So one, I was like, how can I now start telling my father that this girl that you love so much, this girl that you have high expectations, like, how do you even start to explain that? And that wasn't even the blow. When I tried to now tell my boyfriend I was expecting, he was like, how? We're still young, we're still in school.
He was not ready for it.
He wasn't. Actually, the reaction was very, very bad, like very bad. So we broke up, actually, when he found out I was expecting. We didn't talk for a very long time. But what really helped me then, actually during that mess, is when I found Jesus, I would say, initially. Because I was staying with a friend who is now a prophetess by the special grace of God. God has given her a ministry. So that time she didn't have where to stay. So I brought her and she was staying in my hostel. So she's one of the people that I think was very, very instrumental for me. Even for me to keep the pregnancy was because of her, I would say. So God bless her so much. Otherwise, I would have added a sin to a sin,
True.
But so during that time, I told her, like, I can't keep it. She's like, my sister, you can't. God doesn't look at you like that. She started to preach to me. She started to talk to me. That's when I started a journey. And I remember telling God, if I am to do the right thing, which is to keep the pregnancy, help me. So that the school administrators don't notice that I'm even pregnant, so that I don't lose a year.
You don't lose a year.
My father would find out. Obviously, disappointment was going to be part of the whole thing. but you can't prepare yourself mentally enough for the kind of reaction that you would get from your father or from your mother. Mothers are a bit, but for the father who has educated you, and I'm in a private institute where we pay tons of millions, so it was quite a thing for me to deal with at that time. First trimester, I didn't tell anyone, but I kept praying.
You didn't get morning sickness and the
Now,
likes?
for me, actually, to be very honest, I think that very first pregnancy, because it was a new thing to me, I used to sleep a lot and I used to eat a lot. That's one thing I clearly remember. But I didn't have morning sickness, really.
Nausea?
I used to get nausea, but periodically. It wasn't something like many mothers complain about, One thing I realized, I used to have a lot of headaches. Like, headaches is, I would say it's part of me, especially when I get pregnant. I have a tendency of getting, like headaches, frequent headaches. But sleep, I can sleep. Like, even I can't sit here for 5 minutes. I'll wake up and then keep awake for only 30 minutes and then I want to sleep again. And imagine I had to go to class. I had coursework to do. And that is the time when things were tough because you have to write your, is it called dissertation? Yes. So everything was so hard. But God is I think my senses came. I performed even more than the other semesters when I wasn't even pregnant. It's like there now, the shock and the shame shook me up and I became way serious. So that's a thing I realized.
But I'm told when we are pregnant, we are wiser. Should I put it that way?
For me, I think I would agree with that because, like I said, before I was living my life, I was doing anyhow. I think it took God to allow this pregnancy to happen for him to even get my attention in the first place, So, because before Ngankola Biangi, honestly, I wasn't so unruly. I wasn't sleeping around. I wasn't up. Or is it been this person that if I'm dating this person, this is it? I'm not like seeing somebody else. I'm not saying no. But I would go out, which this is my story. I would go out, club, to a point that there is even an owner of a club who is a friend, where he tells us he brings like a whole coaster. And he says, put in girls and come so that my buys, So were those people. And people were like, these girls are in law school. Nenga, we go to the bar Monday to Friday with a friend of mine. And now she's an advocate, actually. Yes, she's even practicing.
Please don't mention her name.
No, I won't. So just long story short, my pregnancy journey wasn't that bad. But I had a lot of spiritual warfare, a lot. I would get a lot of attacks in my dreams. I would see my baby's hair cut off in the dream. I would dream giving birth to a big baby. Like when you just go to hospital, you push. Nenga, the child comes out as if she's 4 or 5 years, So I had a lot, actually. I started to battle. I would see dead people in my dream. I saw a lot, actually. But I was at that level whereby, and it's funny enough because my friend was just with me for only that part. Then I think God was intentional in the very first place that she was with me in that very difficult time. I remember in my second trimester she wasn't there. I was by myself. Now I'm in school hostel. I don't want to go back home because my dad would find out. So I felt I would hide it for as long as I could. Actually thought I would give birth and just say Manawangi. Like this is my baby, my degree is there, so that it would lessen the disappointment. Well, it didn't happen like that at all. So going to my second trimester, my friend left me. So I stayed alone with now another roommate who didn't even know that I was expecting. She was a year lesser than I was. So I just thought that, know that one, you're staying with a pregnant person. So if I do certain things, don't be surprised. But I'll try my best not to make you stay very uncomfortable. So at some point she was surprised because one, I was very energetic. I was normal, actually. And God was very faithful that my pregnancy, by the time they started to notice, it was already too late. We were going to do final exams, so there's nothing they would do. So my belly didn't show, number one. Two, I didn't really look pregnant that much. So it's like God was keeping his covenant with me. That if I keep this, I don't want anyone to find out, especially the school administration. So I remember telling my mom in my second trimester, the first thing she asked me is, Omsaja wali? Is he there? Is he responsible? I'm like, that kind of. So with faith, I just said, yeah, he's actually present. Though, he's also a student and this and that. So we're just going to manage. Mom is like, what? If he's there and he's responsible, fortunately, you're all finishing school, you work and it's okay. Have you told your dad? I said, how can I? So she was like, don't tell him. Let him find out on his own. But if you tell him, now he will be broken. And then I had a semester to go. So if I told him two things, either he wouldn't pay my school fees, so that means that who would pay my fees? Like, I had a lot of worries. But one thing I remember clearly is that pregnancy drew me a lot to God. I stopped going to the bar to a point like every time I would even, my hostel was in between bars. There's a bar behind me, there's a bar beside me, so that even when I'm sleeping, the music would be, that is how serious it was. But I reached a point, funny enough, I can be on a border, let's say from night discussions. I would pass the bar to my house and I didn't hear any music, any sound. So when I'm up, I'm hearing noise, that's when I'll be like, wait, now you say, like, where did I pass? I'm like, how come I passed the place and I never... Then that time I used to try and go to the bar with my friends because they were still going. But the minute I sit like this, I would start to doze. Sitting on the speaker, meanwhile, it's boom, boom. I mean, I would doze. So slowly God detached me from the bar life, actually. Some people would be like, maybe because I was pregnant. Even though pregnant, I would still go back a bit. But I just couldn't. I wouldn't even sustain myself 30 minutes. Even them, they would laugh. They'd be like, you go because I would, in a bar with loud music and everything, you're dozing. So I quit going to the bar. Went on with the pregnancy. Then around 8 months, that is 32 weeks, imagine, I was that close. I remember I had my, it was international trade law examination. Then I started to feel funny. But actually, to take you back, during the whole pregnancy journey, I think there was something wrong, but I didn't know.
You didn't know. It was your first experience.
Yes. But every time I would go to the clinic, because I went to a clinic close by, then I would go to hospital in Kampala, but that would be once in a while, no more checkups. But routinely, I would go to a clinic close to me where I did my antenatals. So they would always check my vitals. They were very okay. But when I come in, and then they're like, they normally ask you how long are you due and all that. I would be like, I'm 5 months. The nurse would be like, 5 months, see? Where?
Because it was not showing.
It wasn't. So every time they would scan, they would say the baby is fine, the cages are okay and everything, but the belly wasn't coming out. And so at some point I was like, but then I was also confused. If the child is growing, why isn't my belly coming out, Then the doctors were like, since you're tall, you're this, maybe your belly would not. So I had a bit of those concerns. And remember why I used to fear, because I used to get a lot of attacks in my dreams.
In the dreams, yes.
I prayed a lot, to be very honest with you. But
had you learned how to pray?
Funny enough, I think I come from a Christian background, and particularly I'm an SDA. Though by the grace of God, I don't know how to say it, but I'm a born again now by the grace of God. So growing up, we're taught how to study the Word. My church is more of a Word. They teach us a lot of the Word. Unfortunately,
your church, your former church.
My former, it's the same thing. It's still the okay. My former church.
I don't know.
My former church. So, to cut everything short, we did the Word, So I knew how to pray somehow, because what our religion teaches us is prayer is a conversation with God, which is paramount as well. So I knew how to pray. To answer you, I knew how to pray, but because of a friend I stayed with, I learned how to pray the balokole way also. I learned how to break fire. For us, we don't fire in the Adventist church. We don't have those kind of things. Yeah, so long story short, at 8 months, which is 32 weeks, during my exam period, I started to have chest pain, severe chest pain, to a point that I used to sleep while seated. I can't lie down because I would have that pressing pain. But before that happened, I dreamt of my late brother coming to me and trying to hug me and kiss me, though it didn't happen. But he wanted to draw close to me. Let's play, let's do this. But somehow I would resist him. Now I had started understanding a bit of revelations through the dream, and then I know what it meant to see a dead person. So I used to fight it so much. So because of that pain, my mom came to stay with me, to help me so I can finish. But I remember the pain was too severe. I wasn't well. And then I would always complain, I don't feel the baby movement. So because of that, they kept on checking, but the baby was fine. They're like, you have, is it anterior placenta or something? So because of that, the child is pressing on your upper belly. Alimunda, so like there's like a cushion on the outside, so they feel like if she kicks, she's kicking on that cushion. So I wouldn't feel I'll just feel like flicks, like butterfly things. So like if you feel the butterflies, it's happening.
Then the baby's turning.
So I was like, okay. I started getting used to it slowly, but at first I was worried. So I went to hospital then, and my mom was with me. We checked. That was the very first day, and the doctor told me, you know what, we can't discharge you. Your pressure is extremely high. If we discharge you, you're going to lose the baby and you would also die, probably. So I didn't understand it because I was not feeling well, but not unwell to the point that you tell me the pressure was about to kill me, because I felt like I didn't feel that bad per se. So the doctor insisted that they should admit me and everything, and I pleaded with them. I told them, you know what, I have just one more exam. Actually, I had 2 more to do, but they were in the next week. So I told them I just have 2 more exams to do. Let me rush and go for just one
Could
week.
it be that you were too stressed, being that you were juggling studying, pregnancy, and
You
the
know, to be
pressures
very
from...
honest with you, for me, drawing closer to God, I had the peace in me. And like I said, now I didn't even care, because the final exams had come and I had sat for them. Most of the papers I had done. I'm only remaining with 2. So whether the lecturer sees me or not, so the tension was there before. At this point, there was no tension. And at this point, my father had found out, by the way.
Yeah, he had
And now he
already
wasn't
know.
even talking to me. So that stress I think that was the only stress I dealt with at that point, because my father was my very good friend. So for me not having to text him and joke the way we used to joke, it had a toll on me. You know, a very big toll on me. And then also fearing that what if maybe I retake in the final year? You know, that kind of thing. How will I redo? Now I'm a mother, breastfeeding and all those things. So I think here, coming closer to the time of delivery, also, you know, I had the fears. And then I also have the fears that the man wasn't in my life. But now he had come back, but we were talking like, yeah, we'll give birth, but I want to marry you, because he clearly told me I have someone I'm looking at marrying. So I knew that I was going to give birth.
That was harsh, eh?
Yes. But it was the truth. But God had given me a peace in that time that he left me. I had married Jesus. I knew that my daughter would have Jesus as a father.
It was a girl.
Yes, it was a girl. So, then my brother was in Canada. One is here, a medical doctor as well. They really supported me. That is a period I never lacked even. I need some money, they would not even give you. But they would say, no, wait. But this time around, I didn't even ask. You'd see 70,000 on your phone, you'd see 100, you'd see. So there was provision in a way. Even when my dad held back, he paid the tuition because he didn't know. By the time he found out tuition was paid, and I was already, but he was disappointed. So I went to hospital, they tried to admit me, and I said, Nembe guided, actually pleaded. The doctor was like, no, in our work ethics, I can't. Professionally, there's no how I'll discharge you. You're dead. Literally, you're like, you're okay, but you're dead. I remember they took away my phone, they took away everything. But even on that sick bed, I was with my book trying to revise. I'm saying, they were like, no, we're going to write to your school asking them to give you the exam at a later stage. Give birth first. You know, I told them, it's only 2 papers. Why would I go and do it later? And what if they don't even accept, you know? So I pleaded. My mom helped me to beg. Eventually, the doctor was like, sign a consent to show that we have not discharged you, but you have agreed to go. And as soon as you finish, come back. So quickly we signed. I left hospital that day. They gave me drugs. They gave me this. So during that week is when my daughter died. Then I came back.
She died before she came out?
Yes, it was a stillbirth. By the time I went to check, when I finished my last exam like this, my brother was outside waiting with the car. My mom had packed everything. My mom was there actually the whole time. Like during my exam time, my mom was with me in my hostel. Imagine, she left her comfort. She came to stay with me at school in hostel. So she was really, really very supportive. So I came back from exam, but then, you know, I would walk on my legs. I had edema actually, meaning I had a lot of water retention, which is a sign of high blood pressure, which is called preeclampsia. So my legs would swell. You know, I'm already big. So my leg would swell times 2. Imagine, shoes were fitting me. So I did my last exam, came back. We drove, traffic and everything. But
so you didn't notice the swelling before going to hospital? Or it came after you had gone?
Like normally when you're pregnant, especially in the last trimester, some women swell their feet. But mine was more extreme. But I didn't know. My mom was like, it's normal. Normally, I had to raise them up so that they would shrink. But let's say if I'm now writing an exam, my 2 feet are down, you're even wearing shoes. You're not going with open shoes in an exam hall. I would wear shoes like this. So my leg would swell to the point that the shoe would even get torn almost. So that pressure was too much. Like that pressure. Then I started noticing my heart would keep skipping, you know. All these were signs that my pressure was. So I remember that particular night, we drove to hospital, but it was late. So my mom was like, let's go home. Then the next day, very early in the morning, we go to hospital. Remember, you're going home where your dad doesn't even want to look at you. The shame, the everything. Really, God bless mothers. Remember that took in the shame like it was. So
from the exam pressure, then your father.
So clearly, at first that is what we attributed it to. For now, that is what we held on to. Well, like the exam, until the stress of the guy has left her, until the father. So when we went to hospital that day, the doctor searched and searched and searched. There was no heartbeat. searched and searched us. But that previous night, I had a lot of flickerings, a lot of butterflies. But like I said, for me, I thought it's today she was just active or whatever. So when I went to hospital that morning, they did the checks and everything. There was no heartbeat. At first, they were using this normal one, the wood. So they brought the one that is electric to check. The one where you feel the sound, it was empty. So the doctor was like, let's go and scan and then, get the whole. So when they went to scan, the scan also checked and checked and checked. The baby had actually, the pressure was too much to the point that she had shrunk, like, let's say remember I was in my last trimester, 8 months, but the size of the baby had shrunk to almost like a 4-month-old or even 3 months. That is how much pressure had hit her. So to the point that the scan was searching and they weren't seeing her. They were like, where is the pregnancy? Till the guy finally said, they're like, unfortunately, she's gone. I don't see anything. So to be realistic, I was on that sick bed and then I was like, naturally, I was on the table. I was like, God, after me going through all this, my father has hated. That's how I even after told my mom, what was the use of all this now? 8 months for what? 8 months of my students knowing I'm pregnant and talking behind your back, you'll lose your this. Tuabimanya, they used to go to the bars, and then me journeying with God and telling God I will not do this anymore. Wasn't my apology enough for you, Jesus? I had all those things. Why would you allow my girl to die? I had now gotten used to the fact I had built an image of whether you have a father or not, we're going to make life together. I'd even, how you're excited about the kind of hairstyle I would give. I'd even prayed, let her not have a father's nose. Those prayers you make. So long story short, I shed a few tears, by the way, unexpectedly. Maybe they thought I would break down, and to my surprise, I didn't cry like that. I just said, God, anyway, I think I had built confidence in God to a point that I knew everything He has allowed is for my good. So I just held my tummy. I said to my girl, goodbye. Thank you for drawing me closer to God. Thank you for everything you brought close to me, but this is it. So they were like, are you ready to Mujem? Because the longer we take, it could affect you. I was like, doctor, even now I'm ready. But I was
had to induce.
Yes, imagine. So I went through the pain for nothing. I did cry, and everyone I think was surprised. After pushing, I pushed normally, very fast. I went through the pain and everything, throughout the night. Then I remember telling God by 6:30 a.m. the next day, I want this thing to be out. And that is what happened. 6:30 on that dot, I had pushed her out to a point that I over pushed and she almost fell down, but the nurse was there
to hold
her. Yeah, so that was now my first experience of labor, actual labor, because I went through the pain, and when she came out, she was weighing 2 point something. Meaning she was going to actually be heavy.
She was going to be a big baby.
So when I looked at her, she was a very brown baby. The nose, everything I had prayed for had formed. The nose, because the father had a bigger nose, and I was like, God, I don't want that for my girl. So she had like the features that I actually prayed for. And I'm like, hey, Kavambi. So I didn't look much. The doctors are like, do you want to hold her? I was even scared. Something I knew. But because of the prayers I made, I wanted to just look at those features I had prayed for. That's when I actually knew that you can create your child. You pray and create, and it actually happens. So that story ended. I told the dad. Now the dad was actually very concerned. Actually, we're friends still today with the dad. We actually talk. He has a lot of respect for me. We're good friends. We do talk. So because of that, I was like, now I want to leave Uganda. I had already purposed that after graduation. I graduated very well by the grace of God. That was my very best year in school. I performed better. I think I almost became, I don't remember the position I took, but I was among, So I left school, and then I was thinking, Kati Kampala, what am I going to do? Now you have to face work. At first you're like, I'm going to maybe nurse 1 year or so. Then I now look for a job or go to LDC. So now I knew life was real. There is no child. And at some point I felt liberated.
Just rush us to the second pregnancy.
So the second pregnancy was for someone I met while in Dubai. I left Uganda, I went to work in Dubai by the grace of God. Things were okay for me. I met this person. I think I never loved anyone like this man, to be very honest. So, and we got close to, we dated for 4 years. It didn't just happen. I conceived and then came back home to give birth. Now that was Corona time. So same thing, around 6 months, I started getting, it's like an attack. it started coming. I remember the other one I'd even gone for 8 months. So this one at 6 months, 7 months, it struck again. And to cut the whole story short, I was just home one day, and then, like I was explaining before, I just felt like, I had a car and then everything was in place. So I was wondering where the pressure comes from. And this pressure was different. It doesn't come like this pressure where it gives you chance to even say pressure, but then it comes
at once.
And after the child comes out, the pressure is gone. They don't see it anymore. So that was my story, actually. That was my case. So I was just home one day and I was like, COVID came now, it was total lockdown. But pregnant women, you need to go with a letter from your local chairman, go to hospital. But me, I was using that leverage of being pregnant to go out of the house. So, and still my pregnancies are peaceful. The only thing I do is eat and sleep. I don't really get nauseated. If you spray before me, I even used to spray. I eat anything. I don't have cravings. I don't spit. I don't vomit. I was very, very normal. So this time around now, this one I would call her my love baby. I think even till today, because this was going to be a product of a man that you really loved, So, and he was a boy. I prayed for a boy. He was a boy, So I really treated the pregnancy with a lot of care and caution. I didn't want stories of last time to happen. And my boyfriend didn't know that I had a previous story. Of course, how would I tell him? So I went to the local chairman's place. Now that was a new place for me because I was staying by myself with cousins and who were helping me. But they had gone to work that day, so I took the car to go. I went to the chairman's place, got the letter. So I was just there like normally. I told you the chairman wasn't there. But the daughter was there, who is a nurse. She was a practicing nurse. Even at home, like a pharmacy. We had like a pharmacy. So in the process of us talking, is it your first child? I'm like, no, I lost one. And she was like, pressures have a tendency of reoccurring. So she's like, let me even check your pressure as we wait. Like, we're just talking. She put on the machine. The machine was not even counting. It started to show red. The first time she's like, she checked again 3 times, the same thing. She's like, my dear, just go.
Hospital.
But then she was like, I advise you don't go. At least quarter or border, take a judge. You can't drive. You won't reach. I told her, don't worry, I reach. But because of that shock now, I started realizing my heart was, I started driving. I was panicking. I called my mom. I told her my pressure is too high and, So I went to hospital. But remember, when I signed into the hospital, I told them, because they ask you for any previous, medical history. I told them, they were like, okay, this time around, we're going to, the mistake they did or that we didn't take caution. They're like, sometimes they say first pregnancies come with pressure, it can happen. The second time it won't happen. And they were like, if you've changed a spouse, probably maybe he could have had a problem in his genes or anything. So this one could be different. So we didn't do any remedy from the start. We believed it's going to be okay, it's going to be normal. So that was that part that we didn't hold in the beginning. So that time when Navuga, I went to see my doctor. He was a bit busy. I sat. When the guy checked me, I was like, Gwe, how did you come here? I said, I drove. How? From where? The guy told me, sit down here, take some water, give me your phone. They switched off the lights in the ward. He told me, where back. Then I'll come back and recheck again. So for me now, they always think that helps. It's supposed to help. But it put me on more tension. Now I started to reimagine the scenario happening again. So there's no way I would be calm. Then I'm trying to calm myself. God help me. Back then now I'd slid from that first place. That first place I had slid, cutting it. And I'm doing my... So I was like, God.
So on checking, when he came back to check,
he checked and checked again, and the pressure. Now when he came the second time, it was still, but it was going down a bit. He's like, okay, I'm just going to monitor you now. Then in the evening, I'll let you go home. But I'll give you drugs now. I was like, I'm going to give you drugs so that you swallow, so that it moderates your pressure. So it didn't happen. That very evening, he was saying they should discharge me. When he came back in the evening, the pressure had shoot up again. So the doctor was like, start calling your people, because we may have to admit you. I told him, sir, I'm not doing anything. Please admit me. In fact, I told him I don't want to go anywhere.
So that the first Kajanja did not apply here.
Around I'm here. So I had to call the father of my son and told him, and he was very upset. Actually, what happened is I was supposed to go to their country. I was Nigerian. So I was supposed to go to Nigeria. The mother, they're like, no, we don't give birth outside. And they're like, he's a boy, blah, 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 doesn't, we need to come. But I remember I'd never gone there. We talk, we do everything. So I was like, pregnancy needs when you're around people you're very comfortable with.
True.
For those who have been there, we know. So I was like, let me go home and give birth. Once I give birth, imagine I was also coming to do the Mikolo. We had like a bit of events happening, like, just to get familiar with each other's family. We were literally almost married, per se, but not officially. So I was like, after I give birth, how you plan normally, the natural thing, I would fly with the boy to Nigeria, stay for as long as he wants to stay with his grandmother, and I can go back and resume my work. It didn't happen. Like, so when I called him, he was angry. Why are you stressing? I gave him money. I said, I'm not even stressing. I don't know. I was happy. I was everything. So long story short, they admitted me. That's when they started giving me those injections that are extremely painful. Actually, because it was pressure can kill you without knowing. That's the funny thing. I can just be seated here like this and then I'll just go. That's it. Because I was feeling normal. Even the doctors at some point I was smiling. What are they talking about? I only realized they were serious when I started seeing injections on my thigh, on anywhere. They were like, if you don't do this, your heart is just going to stop. So they were arresting. So that's when I was like, this is actually serious. So they admitted me. I stayed in hospital. After like 2 days, they were like, you know what? We have to make a quick decision. And they gave me to, actually there was only one option. That was to operate me. Me naturally, I fear an ordinary injection. Kati ungamba, you're going to have to cut me open. How? I told the doctor point blank, I said, the operation, me, I'm not there. They were like, we either operate you and save the baby, because when we operate you, we'll incubate him. But he was just 6 months now. But then they were like, to be very honest, at 6 months, that is 26 weeks in Uganda. We have very scanty records of babies surviving. Our equipments are not so. So fortunately, my sister is a medical doctor. So she was there with me in the same hospital. But then she was in turning in a final year. So she was like, Operation Yokzala, it's not that bad like you think. They'll just, doctors, they'll make you feel, they'll just talk a car, then they will. So I was like, But then, now your motherly instincts come in. Remember I told you I love this pregnancy more than anything. So I was like, okay, if this would give me chance of saving him, I gave my life literally. But it's me that knows. But before the doctor was like, okay, sign here. I told him I will not sign. Wait, call. When I'm ready to sign, I'll call you. So I told my mom, let me ask God. Then I started, normally I was like, God, I know me, I've done wrong. You start, but help me. This time around, how much I love. It's like as if I know, like, if this baby dies, even this man will go. Because I felt like the baby was also holding us together. So that day I don't know if it was like a trance or a vision. Then I didn't know to differentiate those things. But that time when you pray and then you doze off in the prayer session, then I saw a vision of Jesus coming on the clouds were too white and he was handing me a baby. So I looked at him, I smiled, I stretched my hands to pick the baby. What I don't remember is if I actually held the baby in my hands or not. But I stretched my hand and Jesus was smiling at me and the baby was crying normally and he was white, like in a white robe. So I immediately woke up, I told my mom, I was smiling, I told my mom, Bajama Ansale, I was even the one calling me. And I said, you know what? I have a confirmation, this child has to live. God himself has done what?
Spoken. I
told my mom, mom was like, hey. Called my sister, they called the doctor, I was even busy. Kati, the one who didn't want to see it, I wanted it there and then. They were like, we have to prepare you, now it's busy, Richie, but sign, we'll do it tomorrow. Hey. I started eating. In my head, I was like, this one now. When God shows you something, she was there. So the next day, they had to operate me. But I went on that operation table. In my head, I was like, what if the baby lives and me, I die? I'd never gone there. Here I am facing too many lights and my heart is budu. I told them, please, whatever you do, don't, how do they call it? How do they call that procedure? Whereby they have to, the anesthesias, they have to
do half.
So normally they would do initially, those days, they would do the whole body.
They would put you to sleep.
So I said, if they put me to sleep completely,
you may not come back.
The doctors are like, I don't have to worry. These days, we'll even be talking. I said, okay. But to be very honest, they cut me open. The anesthesia were talking normally, how are you? Of course, they have to engage in a conversation to also not sleep over. So we got it done. They brought out the baby wasn't crying. The doctors were like pinching. Normally, what they do, they're like, it's very, very tiny.
But it was 6 months.
And it was only 700 grams. There's 6 months. There's some babies who are 6 months and they are 2 kgs, But mine was 700 grams. But doctors are meant to always encourage you. We've seen even 500, we've seen 800, and they survived there. So no matter I was saying whether you've seen or not, this one will be the first one you see. I had that faith because I believe God had shown me. So long story short, I made an altar in the ICU. because they have to incubate him. No one is allowed there, only you, the parents, or maybe the one person you put in charge, because it's a very sensitive place. I can't forget that experience. Why? It was very painful. The first one I told you the pain wasn't, now this one was very painful. Very painful to the point that I became suicidal. I actually wanted to die. Because what happened is, now the boy stayed 10 days. What hurt me is I made an altar in the ICU. Even the nurses knew me. They're like, oh, yeah, so okay now. I never go to my son. I would go to that place and spend time praying. And then I would pray for all the children in ward that time. Then some mothers would come crying. By the way, premature babies, premature mothers, I've seen a lot. Motherhood is not been easy for us altogether at all. So imagine I make an altar, I'm praying, a woman is coming crying, me I'll be like, let's hold hands and pray. They knew me for that. I would pray with them. Ngoli aduka, the baby has died, you encourage them, you pray with them. So that, I remember it was the 10th day, and we're even counting, we're like, if this baby has made it for the first week, doctors are like, this baby will survive. But he wasn't feeding. He had a lot of difficulties, to be very honest. And me as a mother, I felt the guilt, because each time I would go, the boy would not look at me. He frowns. Because it was very small. I can't describe how I felt that time. But then each time I would go, I would cry. I'd be like, I'm sorry. But then to go back a bit, there's a nurse that came and told me, if you're my sister, I will tell you, keep your child. Don't allow the CS to go back home. Let God do his work. If not, so I felt like maybe God was guiding me in a different way. Then me, I went a different way altogether. Because me, I believe this one was going to be full-time and it would leave. But somehow my faith, with everything that happened, my faith compromised, So after 10 days, we were like, Kastamalako 14 days, which is 2 weeks, we're out of this place. So on the 10th day, I remember it was a Saturday, 25th, I can never forget it, of April that year, I think it was 2019. I went, mothers have a connection with children. I would put on, I don't know if I even got that data about hospital Wi-Fi, I don't even remember. I would always play YouTube videos of worship and all throughout the night. There is no sleep. How would you sleep,
You can't sleep.
So I remember that time, every time my son wasn't okay, anytime he got an attack, my umbilical cord would pull. I feel a lot of pain in my... So I got that pain in the morning, I just woke up. But then when I woke up, I dreamt of a spiritual husband. I had a spiritual husband attack that day. So when I woke up, that's the day my son died. So I told my mom, and remember then my C-section was fresh and I had to walk all the way. So I told my mom, I'm not feeling easy. Let me go. My mom was like, your sister is there. My medical doctor sister was there. So she spent most of her time there most of the time she's the one that helped my baby to sustain longer. Because it was COVID time. The nurses are rushing to go home. Actually, there were usually no doctors. That time was bad. If you are premature mothers, we lost a lot of babies during that period because doctors were not fully available. COVID, there were like few people on duty, and those that work daytime bagala could look again. They want to go home. So they would leave nurses, exactly, curfew. They would leave nurses, and some of the nurses, it was really, really difficult. There's cases they can't handle. So my sister, with or without permission, she would step in. That thing of auntie steps in. You can't look at him die. She would resuscitate him, do everything, bring this. That day he would survive. We wait for the next day. So we're living each day, So even me, when I used to go and check on my baby, I would walk like this. You're scared. You're like, will I find him dead? Because sometimes if he dies overnight or in the morning, you just find a thing empty. They've taken him away, maybe kept him somewhere for you. That was the experience. We don't know. It's very traumatic, I'll be very honest. So the second time now I went that day, my sister was standing there, the doctor was standing there, the nurses were around the place, but they were all standing like my sister was already crying.
After the other feeling that you had gotten?
Yes, I ran down. I told my mom something is not right. I ran down to find that my baby is dying. I've never seen, someone dying before your eyes. And this time around it's your child. You're very helpless. Like, I can't even explain the pain to a point that if I remember it right now, I feel like that was one of the most traumatic things for me, honestly. Because I looked at his legs turning white. He's turning slowly. And I was like, the doctor, please do something. I was calling the doctors, help me, do something. I was shaking my sister. My sister was like,
there's nothing we can do.
Imagine, and the boy opened his eyes and he kept looking at me. His life was slowly going. Me, the mother, I'm helpless. And then I would go and say, please, please. I was begging God. I knelt. For me, honestly, sorry, that pain was something I can never go back to and I still don't feel it. So I was literally standing and then watching him go. Life went out and we were all there till the last day, and then from that white it started. Oh, that was very painful for me. Me was encouraging people. Actually, that day I told God, me and you, we are done. I boldly told God that day in hospital. I said, me and you,